All right, so we are excited. I tell you, I am really excited. This is not really my pastor. This is not really my thing here, really. But who can say no to Michelle and James? I sure can. All right, and so we're glad to be here. And I tell you, talking with Michelle, she said something that I'd never heard before. I never heard the term violence interceptor. I've heard intervention, I've heard intercessors, but interceptor, that means that they're standing in front, intercepting the violence between them and our kids. That's amazing. That's amazing. They're saying, I'm going to stand in front of our children and make sure that the violence stops before it gets to them. We ought to give them a round of applause. That's a great, great thing. Well, I think, are we ready? All right. Well, we're going to have our next speaker, but we're going to ask that Brother Markel, amen, would come up and just introduce our next speaker.
All right.
Y'all ready for this solo?
Now,
you know, one thing kind of changed me into a person, I like to say a therapeutic human, right? A therapeutic person, a therapeutic human, because I grew up in trauma for so long and I superimposed those disorders on everything around me. Not realizing how I affected my children, how we affect our children, how it locks their bodies, brains, and minds up to operate ineffectively, just hollering in front of children. I had an opportunity to meet a scientist, right? So the brain and the mind can operate effectively so these babies don't end up in the court system like I did.
All right.
To be able to regulate your emotions.
Yes, sir.
To be able to rationalize effectively, reason effectively, use good judgment. We have to be able to identify what's going on in the environment, in the less than value environments, or else these disorders, our parenting disorders, will be superimposed onto them and they'll operate in survival mode. This is why they're fast to shoot you.
come on.
Because they live in survival mode. When they shoot other children, shoot other individuals, a lot of times it's not them shooting the person, they're living in the present past or whatever happened in the past.
Wow.
It's the threat that lives in the brain and the body and the mind of these children that's causing them to behave like this. So I met this scientist years ago, right? And she introduced me to that knowledge. She was one of those shepherds that came to begin to heal the flock. That she began to tend to the flock. This professor, this scientist, this brain scientist, excuse me, we got an article of her at the time I was facing 300 years, 8 years ago. After doing 21 years of incarceration, I had never received any treatment. Wow. Didn't know I had a mental health issue. Wow. Didn't know I had a traumatic brain injury. But the court system kept using me in their capitalist way and never gave me treatment, never identified my TBI. Didn't show me the signs and symptoms. In our community, we don't understand mental health.
Thank you.
When you say someone has mental health issues, they say, no, I don't. I need some more alcohol. I need some more drugs. I need some more money. But if you talk to these children, ask them, are they safe? Where do they feel safe at? In their body, in their brain, in their mind? Do you feel safe? Because if you don't feel safe, 9 times out of 10, you're going to superimpose that on your children.
That's right.
That's right.
I'm not up here to preach. I'm not no preacher. But I'm a TBI specialist. I'm a forensic peer specialist. I'm a suicide interventionist. I work at the largest mental health center in the state. We build behavioral health arms into nonprofits so our community can identify this. This lady, this professor, this only professor that conducts this work, when I asked her yesterday, why don't we have more professors giving us the same thing I just gave you? And you know what she said? She said most of them do work for the community, not with the community.
Wow.
This woman has been on CNN Mind source. Supported bills. Senate bills, first bills. Now we can go into DOC and provide traumatic brain injury screenings for individuals in DOC and resources because of this lady, this one professor, this brain scientist, reached back down into the underserved community and not only said that and looked at us and said, I will provide you the resources for your own community so that you can begin to heal your own community and identify and use these signs and symbols. We took her research, got over 350 years overturned in court. This woman, this shepherd, this scientist, this brain scientist have been doing this for years. And I'm talking about years from Illinois all the way to Colorado. Had us on NAMI, Nausea. She reached down in the minority community, grabbed minority businesses, and surged them with resources, neuropsychologists, mental health therapists, psychologists. Should I go any further? And then took Rebuild Your Mind to People Magazine. To People Magazine. I'm not going to leave you no further. I want to give y'all the first who has been working with all of us for the last 8 years with us in Colorado. Our lead neuropsychologist in this state and should be in the country, Dr. Professor Gorgas, our Wonder Woman of brain science. You give this lady a hand. That's what she's done for our community. That's what she's done for the minority community. No other scientist has done this. You give her a hand. And we're out of here.
Oh my gosh, you guys. First of all, I feel so nervous about this. And,
I'm sorry.
Maybe it's the build-up because Markel made that sound pretty important. And thank you so much to Road Called Straight. And I'll talk a little bit about why Road Called Straight and Rebuild Your Mind and ABOS are so special to me. And I think everybody here in the room knows why they're so special and the work is so vital in communities. But because Markel mentioned I'm a professor and maybe I couldn't help myself, of course I brought slides. What? Who does that? It's like, when I told my husband I was preparing a slideshow, he's like, you know, no one wants to learn about that stuff. So sorry. I couldn't help myself. And maybe I could first tell you a story about how I came to meet Markel on the flip side. This was, I guess 6 years, maybe almost 7 years ago now. A colleague sent me a piece of legislation by email, and they said, do you know anything about this? It was about every person in the criminal justice system, pre-trial, post-trial, community members, would get a full neuropsychological evaluation. And, I think they were like kind of chagrined, like, what are you up to now? So do you know anything about this? They sent that to me, and I looked at it, and it was like, probably would cost $400 billion to implement and was a dream come true, an absolute dream come true. I hadn't had anything to do with it. I didn't know anything about it, but I saw that there was a name on the bill, Markel Taylor. So like any of us would do, you Google that name, like, oh, let me see what I can find. And I found this little cell phone video clip, like a bootleg cell phone video clip from the back of a courtroom, and it was Markel testifying at his friend's sentencing hearing, talking about what it meant to him for someone to recommend treatment instead of punishment. And I'll get all choked up about it, but it was so stunning. And you all already know Markel, you saw him here today, like imagine that in the courtroom. And I reached out by email and asked Markel, like, hey, I wonder if we could get together. He emailed back in probably 6 seconds, and we set up a time to meet, and I brought him straight into my classrooms, and he's been part of the educational journey for my students ever since. And one of my students is here today, Sam, who's starting his journey here at the University of Denver. Yay, Sam! And what has been so important to me is that students understand. We talk a lot about social justice, and we train students to be advocates and allies and to be warriors for social justice, but there's an element of social justice that we don't often talk about, and it's about stakeholder voices and stakeholder stories and stakeholder experiences, and it's about getting people to the mic to tell those stories.
Absolutely.
And Markel has made it possible that we can bring this brain injury education around the world, and to humanize it with a first-person story about the experience has meant everything, and turns an entire community around the world, turn their attention to how high the stakes are for our brains. So, Markel, I'm so grateful to you. We've been working with Road Called Straight this is our second year in class. James and Michelle have been amazing. Michelle has single-handedly, I think you taught grant writing to 2 cohorts of about 35 students each, so that's 70 students out in the behavioral health workforce. We're part of the solution now. And if it's okay with you guys, I thought I would just talk one moment about the scope of the problem and what we understand about youth and brain injury in particular.
Yes.
Good? Okay. Spoiler, none of you all can see what we're talking about because it's that tiny screen way over there. So sorry. You guys have the best seats in the house over there. Okay. Next slide, Caden. Okay, there's Markel in our classroom getting the work done, and the next slide, Caden, if you will. Brain injury.